The sun beat down on the parched earth, parched, cracked soil close up. It baked the dust in the valley of Elah. Two armies stood facing each other, shallow stream between them, a wide open field between camps. On one side stood the army of Israel, close up, polished shields gleaming, close up, helmets gleaming, chosen people of God. But fear gripped their hearts. Cold, chilling fear settled deep in their bones. They looked across the valley at their enemy, the Philistines, masked, powerful warriors, battle-hardened, ruthless faces and weapons. Israelites shuffled their feet nervously, hands sweating inside leather gloves. Not just an army, a terror that walked like a man. Each morning was the same, soldiers waking from restless sleep, eating tasteless rations, bread, eating tasteless rations, dried fruit, marching to the edge of the valley, taking positions, forming long lines of defense, hearts not in it, eyes fixed on the enemy camp. They waited, they watched, they listened for the sound that haunted their days, a sound that made grown men tremble, a sound that made the bravest wish he were somewhere else, anywhere else. The valley a prison of fear, every soldier a captive. King Saul sat in his tent, full body, tall, handsome king, close up, face etched with worry. Commanders and advisors with no answers. They had tried everything they could think of, offering rewards, giving rousing speeches to the troops. Nothing broke the spell of fear. Soldiers whispering among themselves, talking about families back home, wondering if they'd see their wives and children again. Hope like a flickering candle in a strong wind. For 40 long days this repeated. Sun, dust, dread. Morale sank lower each day. They felt trapped and helpless. Their faith in God was being tested like never before. Memories of past miracles, parting of the Red Sea, walls of Jericho tumbling. But here, God felt very far away. The enemy across the field felt more real, more powerful. The army on the brink of despair, held hostage by a single terrifying threat. The source of this terror had a name, Goliath. He was not just a soldier, he was a monster in human form. From the city of Gath, he was the champion of the Philistines. Every morning he would stride out from the Philistine camp. His shadow stretched long across the valley floor, a dark omen that fell upon the Israelite lines. He was a giant, towering over everyone. He stood over 9 feet tall. His very presence was an act of intimidation. The ground seemed to tremble slightly with each heavy step he took. The Israelites would shrink back, their eyes wide with a mixture of awe and absolute horror. He was a walking mountain of muscle and bronze. Goliath was armed for war like no man they had ever seen. He wore a bronze helmet that shone like fire in the morning light. His body was covered in a coat of mail armor of overlapping bronze scales. It weighed more than a man. He had bronze guards on his legs, a bronze javelin slung across his back. But it was his spear that truly struck fear into their hearts. The shaft of his spear was as thick as a weaver's beam, a heavy piece of wood that most men could barely lift. The iron point on its end was a massive, wicked-looking thing, designed for one purpose, to kill. He was a walking fortress, a seemingly invincible warrior. Every morning and every evening Goliath would step forward. He would cup his hands around his mouth and his voice would boom across the valley.
Why do you come out and line up for battle?
His words were not just a challenge, they were an insult.
Am I not a Philistine? And are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us.
The Israelites listened in silence. Not a single man moved. King Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. The reward for defeating him was great. Riches, the king's daughter in marriage, tax exemption for his family. But the risk was greater. The risk was a swift and certain death at the hands of a monster. So the challenge went unanswered. Day after day, Goliath would repeat his taunts. And day after day, the army of Israel would stand and listen in shame. Far away from the valley of Elah, life went on. Sheep grazed peacefully on the tender grass. This was the world of David. He was the youngest of 8 sons. While his older brothers were tall and strong, David was still a youth. He was not a soldier. He was a shepherd. His days were spent under the wide-open sky, watching over his father's flock. Danger was always lurking. A lion might creep out from the thickets. A bear might wander down from the mountains. David had to be vigilant. He had to be brave. In the long hours he spent alone, David did more than just watch sheep. He learned to play the harp. He sang songs to God. They did not know about the lion he had fought, or the bear he had killed to save a lamb. They saw a shepherd, but God saw a king. Narrator, VO. One day Jesse called for his youngest son. Narrator, VO. Jesse was worried about his 3 oldest sons, Eliab, Abinadab, Shammah.
Narrator, VO. Take this for your brothers, Jesse said, handing David a large sack. It was filled with roasted grain, and take these 10 loaves of bread. Narrator, VO. Take these 10 cheeses to the commander of their unit, he instructed. Narrator, VO. Finally, Jesse gave David his most important instruction. See how your brothers are, and bring back some assurance from them, he said.
Narrator, VO. Early the next morning, David rose before the sun. Narrator, VO. He found someone to look after the flock. He loaded the grain, he loaded the bread, he loaded the cheeses. Narrator, VO. He said goodbye and set off on the road, 15 miles from Bethlehem to the valley of Elah. Narrator, VO. The landscape began to change. Narrator, VO. No armor, no sword, no military training, a shepherd's staff in his hand. Narrator, VO. Nearing the valley, a distant rumble reached him. Then another sound, a roar of defiance, a great shout. Narrator, VO. David reached the edge of the camp just as the Israelite army was moving out. Narrator, VO. David found a place to leave his supplies. He ran toward the battle line, calling out their names. Narrator, VO. He greeted them warmly. They were surprised to see their little brother there. Narrator, VO. But as he was talking with them, it was Goliath. Narrator, VO. He shouted his usual challenge. His words were full of mockery and contempt for Israel and their God. Narrator, VO. David heard the challenge for the first time. Instead, something else stirred within him, a righteous anger. Narrator, VO. When the Israelite soldiers saw the giant and heard his words, they all ran from him in great fear. Narrator, VO. David stood there, watching in disbelief. The camp was not a camp of soldiers, it was a camp of fear. David stood among the scattering soldiers. He could not believe what he was seeing. David turned to the men standing near him, his eyes wide with disbelief and a dawning sense of purpose. What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel?
The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give him his daughter in marriage.
And he will exempt his family from taxes in Israel.
He was looking at an enemy of God, and in David's world, no enemy of God was too big to fall. As David went from group to group, his oldest brother Eliab overheard him. "Why have you come down here?" he demanded. "And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness?" "I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is," Eliab continued. "You came down only to watch the battle," he accused. "Now what have I done?" he asked. "Can I even speak?" He simply turned away from Eliab. He walked over to another group of soldiers and asked them the same question again. Word travels fast in an army camp. The soldiers started whispering to each other. The story quickly made its way up the chain of command. Eventually, the report reached the ears of the king himself. Saul was a desperate man, and desperate men will listen to even the most unlikely of propositions. So, the king of Israel gave a simple command: "Bring him to me." The soldiers found David and brought him to the king's tent. "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine," David declared. "Your servant will go and fight him." "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him," Saul said. "You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep," he started. "When a lion came, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." Saul said, "Go, and the Lord be with you." So the king offered David his own personal armor. First, they placed Saul's own bronze helmet on David's head. Then, they draped Saul's coat of mail over him. He tried to walk. He felt clumsy and weighed down. "I cannot go in these," he said. "I am not used to them." So he began to take off the armor. He headed away from the battlefield toward the brook in the valley. He bent down and reached into the cool, clear water. He needed smooth, rounded, weighted stones. One by one he chose his ammunition. He chose exactly 5. 5 stones in the bag, staff in one hand, his sling in the other. Now he was ready. David walked out onto the open field. Goliath saw him coming. The Philistine champion felt a surge of contempt. "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? Come here," he roared, "and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin," David began. "But I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands. I'll strike you down and cut off your head, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel." The speeches were over. Goliath, enraged by the boy's defiance, began to move, but David did not run away. He ran toward the giant. As he ran, his hand dipped into his shepherd's bag. He placed the stone into the leather pouch of his sling. Faster and faster it went, making a whirring sound in the tense air. With a final, powerful whip of his arm, David let one cord of the sling fly. The stone was released. The stone struck the giant squarely on the forehead. The stone sank deep into his forehead. He swayed and came crashing down face first onto the earth. For a moment, there was a stunned silence across the valley of Elah. David ran to the fallen Philistine. He drew the giants. With a final, decisive act, he used the giant's own sword to kill him and cut off his head. He held the gruesome trophy high for all to see. When the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, their courage completely shattered. They turned to flee. The army of Israel finally found its voice. A great shout of victory rose from their lines. They charged across the valley. The story of David and Goliath is more than just an ancient tale of a battle. It speaks to anyone who has ever faced a giant in their own life. A giant is any problem that seems too big to handle. A challenge at work, a difficult relationship, a financial crisis, a struggle with fear and doubt. David shows us a different way to face our giants. He did not focus on the size of his enemy. He focused on the size of his God. He rejected the armor of human wisdom and worldly strength. He chose to use the simple tools that God had placed in his hands. David's victory teaches us that our past struggles can be our training ground. The challenges we overcome build the faith and character we need for bigger battles ahead. David's path forward was changed forever on that day, from overlooked shepherd boy to national hero. It reminds us that one person acting in faith can make a world of difference. We can choose to face our fears not with our own strength, but in the name of the living God who can bring down any giant.